Another week of football is officially here, and the timing could not be more interesting for New England. Looking at where this team is right now, it still feels surreal to say it out loud. The Patriots are not just hanging around in the conversation, they are firmly positioned as one of the strongest teams in the conference, riding momentum that very few people predicted back when the season began. Even those who believed this roster had playoff potential probably did not envision a stretch like this, with consistent wins stacking up and the team playing with confidence, discipline, and identity. There's a sense around the locker room and around the fan base that this season has taken on a life of its own, and that belief is starting to show on Sundays. As the focus begins to shift toward the upcoming matchup with Baltimore, there's already plenty to unpack, starting with a roster decision that quietly says a lot about how this coaching staff is operating. New England made a calculated move at linebacker, choosing to move on from Caleb Murphy and bring in Caleb Muma from the Indianapolis practice squad. On the surface, it might look like routine roster shuffling, but when you dig into what has happened defensively over the last game and the broader context of the season, the reasoning becomes clear. This was not a panic move, and it certainly was not random. It was a response to a very specific problem that showed up on film and in the box score. One of the most telling details from the last game was seeing a safety, Jalen Hawkins, finish as the leading tackler. While that stat line might look impressive at first glance, it often signals trouble for a defense. When safeties are cleaning up that many plays, it usually means runners and receivers are getting through the first two levels too easily. The Patriots' defense thrives when linebackers are filling gaps, clogging running lanes, and forcing plays to end early. That rhythm was missing at times, and it was especially noticeable against a physical opponent that challenged New England in both the run game and underneath coverage. The absence of Robert Spillane loomed large. When he is on the field, his impact goes beyond tackles. He brings structure, communication, and an edge that stabilizes the middle of the defense. Add to that the earlier injury to Milton Williams, and suddenly the front seven does not look quite as imposing. Williams, before getting hurt, had been finding his groove alongside Christian Barmore, and together they were making life miserable for opposing offenses. Their ability to collapse pockets and disrupt run schemes is a big reason the Patriots' defense had been trending upward. Without that full combination available, cracks started to appear. That is where the addition of Muma makes sense. He is a player who has been in competitive linebacker rooms before, first entering the league with Jacksonville and later spending time in Indianapolis. Being on a practice squad does not erase potential, and New England clearly saw something worth exploring. Teams do not elevate players directly onto the active roster unless they have been monitoring them closely. This was a move rooted in evaluation, not desperation. The coaching staff identified a need for depth and physicality at linebacker, especially with questions surrounding availability and workload as the season grinds on. It is also important to understand the bigger picture with Spillane. He was active but held out, and that decision speaks volumes about how the Patriots are thinking long-term. This team is not just chasing individual regular season wins anymore. They are positioning themselves for meaningful football later on. Rushing a key defensive leader back into action only to risk a setback would be short-sighted. Preserving health, especially at this stage, is part of what separates disciplined contenders from reckless ones. The Patriots showed patience, even knowing it might make the immediate challenge more difficult. When you go back and watch the second half of that game, the struggles at linebacker become even clearer. Missed fits, hesitation in coverage, and delayed reactions allowed drives to extend. While players like Ellis and Gibbons contributed effort and tackles, the consistency simply was not there. That does not mean they lack talent, but it does highlight why adding another option to the rotation matters. Depth becomes critical as injuries pile up and opponents adjust their game plans. Muma now steps into an environment where expectations are clear and competition is fierce. What stands out most is how quickly the Patriots address the issue. This organization has always valued self-scouting, and this move reinforces that philosophy. They saw a vulnerability, acknowledged it, and acted without overcomplicating the solution. That is the kind of decisiveness that builds trust in the locker room. Players know that performance matters, and that the staff is willing to make adjustments to put the team in the best position to succeed. As the team prepares for Baltimore, all of this context matters. The Ravens are not a forgiving opponent. They test discipline, physicality, and communication on every snap. Shoring up the linebacker group, even incrementally, could make a significant difference in how New England handles the middle of the field. The Patriots are entering this matchup not just as a feel-good story, but as a team with legitimate expectations, aware of its flaws, and willing to confront them head-on. The way this roster continues to evolve week by week will say a lot about how far this season can ultimately go. Beyond the immediate roster move, the larger conversation naturally shifts toward where the Patriots stand in the broader landscape of the conference. At this point in the season, it is no longer a stretch to talk about seeding, matchups, and potential paths once the postseason arrives. New England has earned that right through consistent execution and resilience, even when circumstances have not been ideal. Sitting near the top of the standings, the Patriots have put themselves in a position where every remaining game carries layered importance, not just for wins and losses, but for how the team sharpens itself against playoff-level competition. The reality is that securing the top seed is unlikely, given the current gap and the way the schedule has unfolded. That does not diminish what this team has accomplished or what remains within reach. Being positioned among the top records in the conference still provides leverage, confidence, and flexibility. More importantly, it reinforces the idea that this Patriots squad can compete with anyone on a neutral field or in a hostile environment. That belief is not based on hype, but on the way this team has responded to adversity throughout the year. When examining potential playoff opponents, there's an emotional layer that inevitably comes into play. Certain teams carry history, frustration, and unfinished business. For New England, there's no denying that some past matchups still sting, especially games that slipped away due to turnovers or missed opportunities rather than being outright outplayed. Those memories linger, and they quietly fuel preparation. Players may not say it publicly, but inside the building, they remember how those games unfolded and how close they came to a different outcome. What makes this Patriots team dangerous is that it does not rely on a single narrative or one side of the ball to carry them. The underscore attach offense has found ways to manage games efficiently, protect the football, and capitalize on field position. The defense, even when banged up, has shown an ability to adjust and remain competitive. That balance is critical in January football, where margins are thin and momentum can swing on a single possession. New England has proven it can win in different ways, and that versatility matters. Looking back at the earlier loss that many fans still point to, it is easy to see how close that game truly was. Mistakes piled up, and yet the Patriots were still within striking distance deep into the contest. Those are the kinds of games that feel different when reviewed later in the season. They become reference points rather than scars. They remind players that execution, not intimidation, decides outcomes at this level. A rematch under postseason pressure would bring a completely different energy, especially with this team now more experienced and more cohesive. Another key factor is leadership. This Patriots roster has embraced the voice and vision of its coaching staff, particularly on the defensive side. The emphasis on accountability and preparation has translated into steady growth. Even younger players have been forced to mature quickly, learning from real-time mistakes rather than theoretical ones. That kind of development pays dividends when the stakes rise. The Patriots are not just surviving these moments, they're absorbing them. Health remains the variable that could shape everything. The cautious handling of injured contributors earlier in the season now looks increasingly wise. Preserving core players for the stretch run was not about conceding a game, but about maximizing the overall trajectory of the season. Depth additions like Muma are part of that strategy, ensuring that no single absence completely derails the defensive structure. It is a chess match that unfolds over months, not weeks. As the postseason picture continues to clarify, New England's identity feels more defined than it did at the start of the year. This is a team that thrives on physical play, situational awareness, and disciplined execution. They're not chasing style points. They're focused on stacking performances that travel well, regardless of venue or opponent. That mindset is often what separates teams that make noise in the playoff from those that exit early. The upcoming stretch will test that identity in meaningful ways. Each game presents a chance to refine communication, tighten assignments, and build trust. Mistakes will happen, but how the Patriots respond to them will matter far more than the mistakes themselves. The foundation is already in place. The question now is how far this group can push itself when the pressure intensifies and the margin for error disappears. As the regular season continues to narrow, the most intriguing part of this Patriots run is how composed the team looks despite the rising expectations. There is no sense of panic, no emotional swings from week to week, and that steadiness has become one of New England's biggest strengths. This group understands that every opponent now treats them like a measuring stick, and instead of shrinking from that pressure, they seem to embrace it. Practices have carried more intensity, details have been sharpened, and the margin for mental errors has clearly tightened. One thing that stands out is how the defense communicates before the snap. Even with rotation changes and injuries forcing adjustments, the alignment and recognition have remained relatively clean. That speaks to preparation and trust, especially in the middle of the field where linebackers and safeties must operate in sync. The addition of another capable body into that mix is less about replacing anyone and more about sustaining that communication over a long stretch. Fatigue exposes weaknesses faster than talent gaps, and New England is trying to stay ahead of that curve. Offensively, the approach has been pragmatic rather than flashy. The Patriots have leaned into situational football, converting manageable third downs, controlling tempo, and making opponents defend the entire field. There is a patience to the play calling that mirrors the overall philosophy of the team. Rather than forcing explosive plays, they're willing to stack small wins, trusting that discipline will eventually crack even the most aggressive defenses. That mindset complements the defense perfectly, keeping games within a structure New England prefers. What also cannot be ignored is how younger players have grown into their roles. Early in the season, there were moments of hesitation and inconsistency, but those have gradually faded. Experience has a way of accelerating under pressure, and meaningful games in November and December serve as a fast track for development. Players are no longer thinking through assignments. They are reacting, and that difference shows up in pursuit angles, coverage drops, and tackling efficiency. The coaching staff deserves credit for creating an environment where competition does not fracture chemistry. Roster moves, role changes, and snap count fluctuations have been handled transparently, which keeps buy-in high. When players understand why decisions are made, even difficult ones, it reinforces accountability rather than resentment. That culture has been a hallmark of successful Patriots teams in the past, and its reemergence is hard to miss. Before we continue, don't forget to subscribe to Patriots Hub and give this video a like. Your support helps us keep delivering the latest updates on our New England Patriots. And don't be shy. Share your thoughts on the news in the comments below. Shockwaves are reportedly rippling through the Patriots organization as whispers emerge from inside the locker room, suggesting that Robert Kraft has made a definitive statement regarding a key player's future. According to sources close to the team, Kraft, known not just for his billionaire business acumen, but for his hands-on leadership of the KRAFT Group and its sports ventures, allegedly declared that one of the franchise's cornerstone figures will no longer play here. The mere suggestion of such a decision has reportedly sent the locker room into a state of chaos, with players, coaches, and staff scrambling to process what could amount to a seismic shift for the franchise. Insiders claim that discussions have been quietly simmering behind closed doors for weeks, fueled by speculation about long-term strategy, salary cap considerations, and the ever-present tension between veteran leadership and the team's evolving roster ambitions. Kraft, whose influence stretches far beyond the gridiron, spanning paper, packaging, real estate, and private equity, has always been known for decisive action, but the alleged pronouncement marks a level of finality that few expected. While official statements have yet to confirm any departure, Sources suggest that the mere hint of this move has generated heated debates among players, with some reportedly shocked, others contemplative, and a few bracing themselves for potential trade scenarios or front office restructuring. Rumors from inside the organization hint that the locker room's reaction was immediate and intense, described by some as explosive, reflecting both emotional attachment and professional concern. Veteran players, who have long viewed this individual as a linchpin of team identity, are said to be struggling with the implications for on-field chemistry and locker room morale. Meanwhile, the coaching staff is reportedly attempting to maintain a semblance of normalcy, even as whispers of this possible exit continue to dominate conversations in the facility. Speculation now runs wild among analysts and fans alike, with social media abuzz over what could be the next big shakeup for the Patriots. The uncertainty surrounding the situation only fuels further intrigue, leaving the football world watching closely for confirmation, denial, or even hints dropped in the coming weeks. In the high-stakes environment of professional sports, KRAFT's rumor decision, if true, could reshape not just the team's immediate prospects, but its long-term identity, highlighting once again the immense influence of a figure whose reach extends far beyond the field. That's it for this update. If you enjoyed the video and want to stay updated with exclusive news about our New England Patriots, be sure to subscribe to Patriots Hub and hit that like button. We can't wait to hear your thoughts in the comments. See you in the next video.